Hey everybody, IcyCat here once again with another in-depth operator profile. Today we're taking a look at FUZE. This attacker can help bring the shock and awe to the defending team and secure the win for the attackers. Let's take a closer look now. FUZE is an attacker for the Spetsnaz CTU. His loadout will consist of 3 primary weapon choices, starting with the 6P41 light machine gun for stopping power, and that's going to be my primary recommendation. He also has the ballistic shield, or the AK-12 assault rifle, which is a pretty decent standby as well. He's got the PMM for maximum stopping power, or the GSH-18 with a higher ammo capacity but less damage. Breaching charges and stun grenades are going to round out his loadout. I tend to recommend the breaching charge. He just feels kind of incomplete without it, but either one is good. His specialty is the cluster charge. He gets 2 of these, and they can be placed on floors, walls, or barricades. Anything that can be fully or partially destroyed he can attach it to. The way it works is this: it sends out 4 mini cluster charges into a room and will fill the area with high explosives, taking out just about anything in its way. It has a random dispersion pattern. It never seems to fill out the same way twice, and you can affect it by placing it either higher or lower on the wall, and that'll change its arc trajectory. You can place a cluster charge and a breaching charge simultaneously, and set them off one after the other for maximum breaching impact. Here I'm using FUZE with a shield. I have to admit, out of all of his loadout options, he doesn't seem to match all that well with a shield compared to his other abilities. The light machine gun or the AK-12 seem to really be where he fits in more, but the shield is there if you want to use it, I guess. If you do, I'm going to recommend stun grenades with it. It'll help soften up a room so that when you enter, you can kind of take out anything that's left in there, because the pistol's just not going to have the accuracy that you'll want otherwise. The AK-12 is an absolute beast of a weapon, though. This thing has a fast rate of fire, and I put it as my number 2 favorite assault rifle. I think Twitch's FAMAS F2 is probably my number 1 spot, but the AK-12 takes a close second. As mentioned before, I do like to use him with breaching charges. I think he makes a really effective breacher, and when I don't take breaches, I tend to regret that I didn't and wish that I had. He just works really well that way, and he's, I think, more of an aggressive player, and he just feels, in my opinion, he's one of the most fun attackers. Whenever I use FUZE, I tend to go with the 6P41 light machine gun. It's sort of my go-to weapon for him, my default. And it's a lot of fun. It has a lot of stopping power, good rate of fire. Accuracy not so great over long distance, but if you want to have accuracy, just feather the trigger. Light trigger pulls, short trigger pulls will help maintain your accuracy, and it does well in that way. And it's just an absolute beast, and I love it. I was talking a little bit about the AK earlier for its rate of fire and power, but it also does a pretty respectable job with range as well. I mean, the accuracy here that I'm able to pin down these guys that were trying to get the drop on me, that's a pretty far engagement range. You don't have too many lines of sight that are further out than this. And I was able to drop targets fairly consistently without too much difficulty. So once again, reinforcing why the AK-12 is also a valid choice. When you use the cluster charge, you're going to want to be careful of what game mode you're playing in. If you're in hostage rescue, I would stay as far away from cluster charges as possible unless you're absolutely sure you're nowhere near the objective room at the time. I've seen many hostage rescue rounds get lost by the attackers because FUZE will knock a hole in the wall and the hostage will die as a result when all the detonations go off. A further note about his cluster charge is that it does not penetrate metal walls. Try to place it on a reinforced surface, it's just not valid. The other thing you need to be careful of is not to place it next to another breaching charge. Separate them by a little bit of distance or set them off one at a time, because if you set them right next to each other, like say one on one window and one on the window right next to it, the breaching charge will actually destroy the cluster charge before it has a chance to go off. So you'll lose the device if you're not careful about it. Likewise, you'll lose the device if you try to place it on an electrified wall. It will get instantly destroyed, and it can be signal jammed as well. That's going to make Bandit and Mute effective counters to FUZE. Another effective counter is also going to be Jaeger, but the most effective counter to FUZE is going to be Jaeger. His trophy system will help take out 2 projectiles, and since FUZE's cluster charge shoots out 4 projectiles, if Jaeger has 2 of his trophies with overlapping coverage and line of sight, they'll take out all 4 of the cluster charge detonations. When using Jaeger to counter FUZE, make sure that you have that overlapping coverage, because it is possible that 2 of the charges will go into the path of one, but the other 2 won't, and so you'll only stop half of them. Although that's better than nothing, you want to make sure you get them all. Now, since FUZE has 2 cluster charges, that's 8 detonations, and Jaeger can stop 6 of those 8 since he has 3 devices. But again, if the device does not have line of sight, it's not going to stop it. If it's blocked by some furniture or a wall or anything like that, the cluster charge can still get around it. One way that you can get around it intentionally with using fuses, as I mentioned before, your height of placement can affect the trajectory. And if you place it lower to the ground, you are going to have a lower, flatter trajectory, and that is going to be more easily blocked by furniture or crates or things like that, that the trophy system may not be able to stop in time. FUZE is going to combo really well with Twitch. Her drone can go in and take care of any signal jammers that are laying around or any reinforced walls with batteries attached to them. He's also going to combo well with anybody that's a breacher. As mentioned before, he can combo it with his own breaching device, but if you set up a breaching device and your cluster charge device, and then you sync up with other breachers on your team, setting off charges in other areas, you can really flatten an area and open up all kinds of sight lines pretty fast and wreak havoc on the other team. And when you've got the cluster charge going off in the midst of all that, that sets off a panic and intimidation that's hard to beat. Drones are also very effective to pair with FUZE, so he'll get the intel on making sure that he's got somebody in his line of sight when he sets off the charge. Although be careful that you don't lose your drone and get it out of the way when the charge goes off. Well, that's been our in-depth operator profile for FUZE. If you found this content useful, please like and subscribe to stay up to date on all the latest news, tips, info, and commentary for Rainbow Six Siege. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time.